Blue lights bled through the rain, flickering across Marcus Hale's windshield. The wipers couldn't keep up. He'd been driving home from an undercover briefing, hoodie, jeans, nondescript sedan, when the cruiser swung in behind him like a predator that had already chosen. License and registration. The voice sliced through the downpour. Officer Denny Kroll leaned in, face slick with arrogance and rainwater. His flashlight beam dragged over Marcus's skin like a judgment. Marcus kept his hands visible on the wheel. "Evening, officer. Is there a problem?" Kroll snorted. "You fit a description. Car like this, driver like you. You know how it is." The phrase punched Marcus harder than any weapon. "Driver like you." When Marcus handed over his ID, Kroll's lip curled. "Marcus Hale, fancy name. What are you, some rapper? Or you just playing dress down for a deal?" The silence hung long enough for the rain to fill it. Kroll opened the door without warning, dragging Marcus out, pinning him against the car. Metal cuff bit into his wrist. "Gotta make sure you're clean, boss man," Kroll sneered, mocking the word. Then Marcus's phone buzzed. Secure line, government issue. The screen flashed the bureau seal before it dimmed. Kroll froze for half a heartbeat. Marcus felt the shift, the sudden awareness, the dawning fear. Kroll's knuckles tightened on the cuffs. "What the hell are you?" Marcus looked up, rain streaming down his face, voice low and even. "The man who signs your clearance checks." The storm drowned the next second in thunder. Kroll's eyes widened. Then another patrol car rolled up, its siren cutting through the night. Marcus didn't move. The cuffs stayed on. The line between justice and humiliation snapped tight, and no one knew yet who was really in control. Rain poured like static across the city, flattening the night into gray motion. Marcus Hale kept both hands on the wheel, pulse steady but contained as the cruiser's red-blue glare turned the wet street into a mirror of accusation. He'd done this drill 100 times. Calm voice, steady tone, no sudden moves. Still, he could feel his jaw tighten, every drop on the roof ticking like a countdown. The officer approached with a swagger that belonged to someone who believed every light on his car was divine authority. Denny Kroll, mid-30s, buzz cut sharp enough to slice skin, evening sport. "You know why I pulled you over?" Marcus kept his voice measured. "No, sir. I wasn't aware of any violation." Kroll smirked, eyes roaming. "You people never are. Step out of the vehicle." Marcus inhaled slowly. "I'd like to know the reason, officer." "The reason is I said step out." The air smelled of wet asphalt and hot arrogance. Marcus unbuckled, opened the door, and stepped into the rain. Water streamed off his jacket. The ground shimmered with reflected neon. Kroll circled him like a bored wolf. "Where you headed, dressed like that? Late night delivery? Or you running from something?" "Home," Kroll chuckled. "Home, right. Where's that south side?" Marcus didn't answer. Another cruiser slid up, lights strobed. 2 more uniforms stepped out, posture loose, half amused. One whispered something that made Kroll grin wider. Kroll tapped Marcus's shoulder with the flashlight. "Spread your arms. Let's make sure you're not carrying." "I'm not resisting," Marcus said. "Didn't say you were, yet." Metal touched his skin. Hands searched with exaggerated thoroughness. When Kroll found the bureau issue phone, he frowned. "That's government tech. You steal it?" "It's mine." "Sure it is." He tossed the phone to one of the other officers, who scrolled and froze when the encrypted seal flashed. Denny." Kroll snapped. "Keep looking." Marcus exhaled, voice low. "You're making a mistake." "Only mistake here," Kroll said, "is you thinking your mouth means something." Lightning cracked overhead. For an instant, everyone was outlined in white. Marcus's face was calm, but his eyes were iron. The younger officer shifted, uneasy. Kroll pressed. "You some kind of special agent?" "Don't tell me you're FBI." He laughed, expecting silence. Marcus met his gaze. "You don't want the answer. Try me." Rain intensified, pounding the cars. The sound muffled Marcus's words, but the shape of them cut clean. "Undercover unit, counter domestic terror. You've just detained a federal officer." The younger cop's jaw dropped. Kroll's smirk faltered. "Nice story," Kroll said finally, voice brittle. "You got proof?" Marcus turned slightly toward the second cruiser, its dash cam blinking red. "Right there." The camera's lens blinked back, impartial. For a long, electric moment, no one spoke. Then a dispatcher's voice cracked through Kroll's radio. "Officer Kroll, stand by." Command request confirmation on ID. Subject Hale Marcus, clearance level 4. The words hung heavy. The younger cop whispered, "That's real." Kroll's hand slipped from his holster. He forced a grin that didn't fit his face. "Just doing procedure, Agent Hale. Can't be too careful these days." Marcus's silence was heavier than the rain. He waited until Kroll unlocked the cuffs. "You'll file your report," Marcus said evenly. "Include everything you said," Kroll swallowed. "We can forget this, right? Just misunderstanding." Marcus looked at him with detached precision. "You already documented it on camera. There's no forgetting." The other officers shifted. No one met his eyes. Marcus slid into his car, soaked knuckles white on the steering wheel. In the mirror, Kroll stood motionless, rain plastering his uniform to his skin, realization sinking in. Marcus started the engine. The radio hummed faintly with police chatter, voices speaking the same language of authority that had just turned on itself. He drove off without sirens, without anger, only an expanding silence that filled every lane. The city lights blurred through the windshield. Inside that blur, one truth sharpened. The badge didn't protect everyone equally, but the truth could still wound those who thought it did. Marcus's phone vibrated once. Encrypted message. "We saw the footage. Return to base." He drove into the storm, the street swallowing the light behind him. The elevator doors closed behind Marcus, sealing him in mirrored silence. His reflection stared back. Rain-slick jacket, cuff marks still faint on his wrist, eyes red but steady. The descent into the Bureau's basement level felt slower than usual, like the building itself didn't want to face what was coming up from the streets. When the doors opened, fluorescent light hit him like interrogation. The bullpen buzzed with quiet hums, monitors, murmurs, the mechanical rhythm of a system pretending to be impartial. Agent Sophia Tran looked up from her desk. "Jesus, Marcus, you look like you walked through a war zone." He dropped into the chair beside her. "Just a traffic stop," her eyebrows lifted. "By who, the National Guard?" He didn't answer immediately. He pulled his phone, placed it face down on the table. "Local patrol. Officer Denny Kroll." Sophia's eyes narrowed. "The same Kroll from that internal complaint last year? Excessive force, racial profiling?" "Closed without action," Marcus said flatly. "But yeah, that one." She exhaled through her nose, sharp. "You reported it, right?" He looked at her, expression unreadable. "You think that would matter?" Sophia leaned forward. "Marcus, your bureau. If they see that video, they'll bury it," he interrupted. "They'll say it's being handled. Then they'll call his precinct. Smooth it out, tell me not to make noise." She didn't deny it. "Then what's your move?" Marcus stared at the whiteboard across the room. Maps of hate group cells, surveillance photos, task force directives stamped classified. "Same as always. Follow the evidence." Sophia frowned. "This isn't one of your ops." "It is now." Later, in Assistant Director Weller's office, the tone changed. Weller was a tall man with a voice built for briefings, not apologies. He gestured Marcus inside without looking up from his monitor. "I saw the dash footage," Weller said. "Unfortunate situation." "Unfortunate," Marcus repeated. "That's one word for it. You weren't injured. Procedure was technically followed until identification was confirmed. You know how delicate these optics are." Marcus's jaw flexed. "Optics, yes," Weller said. "You, an African-American federal agent detained by a local officer." "Assaulted," Marcus corrected. "Humiliated." "On camera," Weller sighed. "And if we escalate, it turns into a media circus. Local PD will dig up your undercover history, compromise ongoing cases. You want that?" Marcus didn't answer. Weller leaned back. "We'll file a formal internal notice. Let them handle their own. You stay clear." Marcus stood. "So we do nothing?" Weller's tone cooled. "We do what's strategic." The word strategic landed like a verdict. Marcus left before he said something that would end his career. By evening, the office was half empty. Rain had followed him here, tapping against the reinforced windows. Sophia sat across from him again, silent for a long time. "You're not going to let it go," she said finally. "No. You'll get burned." Marcus gave a thin, tired smile. "I've been burned before," she leaned back. "You really think you can expose a cop from inside the Bureau? You'll have to go through every layer that's designed to make sure you can't." I'm not going through, Marcus said quietly. I'm going around. Her gaze hardened, understanding dawning. You're pulling his personnel file. I'm cross-referencing patterns, Marcus replied. Complaints, body cam gaps, arrest overlaps. If there's a thread, I'll find it. And if Weller catches you, then he'll know I still work for justice, not optics. Sophia studied him, then nodded once. Then I'll make sure your system access doesn't flag. He looked at her. You sure about that? She gave a small shrug. If you're going down, you might as well make it worth the fall. Hours later, alone in the dim glow of his terminal, Marcus sifted through records. Kroll's name surfaced again and again. Minor infractions, reprimands rewritten into commendations, partner statements altered. It was a blueprint of protection. Supervisors signing off, internal affairs deferring. Every wrong folded into procedure. He paused at a photo, Kroll at a precinct barbecue, smiling beside the police chief, beer in hand. The caption, Community Hero Award 2021. Marcus's throat tightened. The same man who'd slammed him against a car was toasted as a symbol of service. He whispered to the empty room. How many more? The database flickered, rows upon rows of similar files waiting to be opened. The rain outside intensified, drumming the window like the heartbeat of a system that refused to sleep. Marcus clicked download. A progress bar crawled forward, green against black. When it reached 100%, he leaned back, the ghost of restraint fading from his eyes. The bureau wanted silence. He was done being quiet. The morning briefing room smelled of burnt coffee and bureaucracy. A dozen agents sat in half attention, while Assistant Director Weller outlined new counter-terror targets. Marcus listened without hearing, eyes scanning the paper packet in front of him. The official incident review. It reduced last night's stop to 3 paragraphs of neutral verbs. Subject was pulled over. Subject complied. Officer released subject without further issue. No mention of the cuffs. No slurs, no fear. Just paper clean enough to absolve everyone. When the meeting broke, Sophia slipped beside him. They've already classified it as resolved. Marcus folded the report once, then again, until it was a hard square in his palm. They moved faster to protect him than they ever moved to protect us. IA's opening a token file, she said quietly. Formal inquiry, lots of signatures, 0 teeth. He nodded once. Figures. Across town, Officer Denny Kroll was basking in a different kind of meeting. The precinct's locker room echoed with laughter and the metallic clink of sidearms holstered for the day. Man, that guy was straight up terrified, one officer said. Kroll smirked. Said he was FBI, you believe that? His partner snorted. If he was FBI, I'm the mayor. Kroll shrugged. He played the race card, tried to sound tough, typical. But inside, the memory of the radio call still burned. Subject hail. Clearance level 4. The dispatcher's tone hadn't sounded like a mistake. He pushed the thought down and forced a grin. IA might call, but it's nothing. My sergeant already told me to sit tight. The locker room filled with easy confidence, the kind that came from knowing the system would always land on their side. Back in the bureau, Marcus sat before his monitor, scrolling through Kroll's record. Complaint logs stretched back 6 years, unsubstantiated, insufficient evidence within protocol. Every line a shield. Sophia leaned against the doorway. That's the thing about paper, she said. It looks clean no matter how dirty the truth is. He looked up. Every complaint that disappears makes the next one easier to bury. Find anything usable? Marcus opened one file. This 2020, a teenager hospitalized after a stop. Kroll's name listed, then blacked out in the public report. Video? Deleted from precinct storage. But the timestamp matches a private body cam system under a different vendor. Sophia frowned. You think it still exists? If they archived it, yes, she hesitated. You're crossing lines, Marcus. He didn't look away from the screen. So did he. Later that afternoon, Internal Affairs called him in. Formal tone, neutral decor. 2 investigators sat across a metal table, expressions manufactured to look impartial. We just need your statement for documentation purposes, one said. For our records, Marcus recognized the choreography. Every question carefully phrased to steer him toward misunderstanding. Officer Kroll believed you fit a suspect description? He said. Driver like you, Marcus replied. The investigator shifted. Do you believe that statement was racially motivated? I don't believe it. I know it. A pause. Pen scratched, recording bias into bureaucratic code. The second investigator smiled faintly. We appreciate your cooperation. You'll be notified if further action is taken. Marcus stood. It won't be. Neither of them denied it. That night, Marcus met Sophia in the records room, lights dim, server fans whispering. You sure you want to do this off-book? She asked. He inserted his clearance key. You already know the answer. The database unlocked with a soft chime. Layers of files unfolded. Personnel histories, disciplinary records, private communications. Marcus navigated fast, methodical, until he found what he wanted. A shared folder marked Union Legal, Internal Support. He opened it. PDFs, emails, memos. Kroll's name repeated dozens of times, often beside the same attorney's initials. Internal affairs complaints pre-reviewed, rewritten, reclassified before filing. A network of protection, Sophia read over his shoulder. They've been laundering misconduct through Union Counsel. Marcus nodded slowly. Paper shields. Built to outlast every victim's testimony. She looked at him. What are you going to do with it? He closed the folder. Not yet. I need something they can't sanitize, Sophia frowned. Like what? A video. The rain outside intensified like the night was listening. Meanwhile, in his precinct office, Kroll received a quiet text from his sergeant. Keep your mouth shut. Bureau's sniffing around. You'll be fine. He stared at the screen, heart hammering harder than he wanted to admit. For the first time, he wondered if maybe, just maybe, the man he'd cuffed wasn't bluffing. Still, he sent a short reply. Always am. The storm outside rolled deeper. Thunder closing the distance. 2 systems, one built on silence, one on evidence, were about to collide. Morning broke with the hum of a city pretending nothing had happened. Marcus woke before dawn, phone lighting the dark room with a single alert. Video. Officer Kroll traffic stop goes viral. He stared at the words without moving. Someone had filmed it. Not the dashcam. A bystander. The link opened to chaos, shaky footage, rain streaking the lens. Kroll's voice cutting through the night. You people never are. The clip ended with Marcus's quiet line. The man who signs your clearance checks. 8 seconds. Enough to split the country in half. By the time Marcus reached the bureau, the video had already hit every major outlet. The bullpen buzzed like a hornet's nest. Screens replayed the footage on loop, while anchors dissected racial tension and law enforcement misunderstanding. Sophia met him at the elevator. You see it? Yeah, already 40 million views. Comments are insane. He didn't ask which way. He already knew. In Weller's office, the blinds were drawn. The assistant director stood behind his desk, jaw tight. We have a situation. Marcus folded his arms. We've had a situation. Now people can see it. Don't get righteous, Weller snapped. You're in that video. That makes this bureau business. We can't be seen taking sides. Taking sides? Marcus said. There's a side that dragged me out of my car and a side that didn't. Watch your tone, Agent Hale. We're already dealing with blowback. Local PD's claiming you provoked the stop. Marcus stared at him, expression flat. They're lying. Weller sighed, lowering his voice. We'll issue a joint statement. Calm it down before it escalates. Or we could let the truth escalate, Marcus said quietly. Weller's silence confirmed what Marcus already knew. Truth was a variable, not a priority. Across the city, Officer Kroll's world was collapsing. His phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Calls from reporters, messages from fellow officers, texts from his union rep. Stay quiet. We're handling narrative control. At the precinct, cameras waited outside the entrance. He slipped through the back door, cap low, face pale. Inside, the sergeant met him with a forced grin. You're trending, Kroll, not in a good way. Kroll slammed his locker. Who the hell filmed it? Kid across the street, civilian, name's Isaiah Green. Already gave a statement to the press. Statement? Yeah, said he saw you rough up a guy who wasn't resisting. And now he's a hero online. Kroll's fist clenched. He's lying. Doesn't matter. Public's eating it up, Kroll's voice dropped. Then I'll handle it. That evening, Marcus sat in his office reviewing footage metadata. Every viral repost carried fragments of data, timestamps, angles, GPS markers. He traced the original upload to a local account registered to Isaiah Green, age 19. Sophia appeared in the doorway. "You're tracking the witness." "I'm protecting him." "Or exposing him," she said. "He's already exposed," Marcus replied. "They'll come for him next." Sophia frowned. "What are you going to do?" "Meet him." Isaiah lived in a modest apartment above a laundromat. The air smelled of detergent and fried food. When Marcus knocked, the door opened an inch, cautious eyes peering through. "You the guy from the video?" the young man asked. "Yeah. You look taller on the internet." Marcus almost smiled. "You got guts posting that." Isaiah shrugged. "Didn't do it for guts. Just couldn't watch it happen again." Marcus nodded slowly. "You getting any threats?" "Some, mostly comments. A few calls. One guy said I'd better delete the video before the cops accidentally lose me." Marcus's voice dropped. "That's not an idle threat. You need to stay inside for a while." Isaiah eyed him. "You sound like you know them." "I know the system they serve." The young man leaned against the doorframe. "You gonna do something about it, Agent?" Marcus hesitated. "Trying to." Isaiah held his gaze. "Then don't let them make me disappear." Later that night, Kroll parked 2 blocks from the laundromat. Rain again, and always rain. He watched the apartment light glowing faintly upstairs. The steering wheel creaked under his hands. He muttered, "You should have kept your phone down, kid." Before he could move, a second car rolled up behind him. Unmarked, tinted windows. A bureau sedan. Marcus stepped out, coat collar raised against the rain. Their eyes met through the downpour. Kroll's jaw tightened. Marcus didn't flinch. He walked past the cruiser, calm and deliberate, up the stairs toward Isaiah's door. Kroll sat frozen, every nerve screaming. He couldn't follow. Not now. Not with dash cams and cell towers watching. For the first time, he felt the system shift under his boots, the weight of his own exposure pressing down. In the apartment, Isaiah scrolled through his notifications. Marcus stood by the window watching the street below. Isaiah said, "They're saying you're some kind of plant." That it was staged. Marcus didn't look away from the window. They always say that. Makes it easier to ignore the truth. Outside, Kroll's cruiser pulled away, swallowed by the storm. Marcus's phone vibrated again. Message from Sophia. Internal affairs leak confirmed. Kroll's records under active review. Someone higher-up's nervous. He pocketed the phone. "It's starting." Isaiah frowned. "What is?" Marcus turned from the glass. Accountability, lightning flashed, catching his reflection in the pane. Calm face, eyes burning with a quiet, exhausted resolve. Down on the street, unseen. The first cracks in the wall of silence were spreading fast. The rain kept falling, steady, relentless, cleansing nothing yet but promising that something was about to break. The bureau conference room was a box of tension. Marcus stood before a screen filled with paused headlines. Viral traffic stop sparks federal review. Officer defends his actions. FBI agent silent amid backlash. Assistant Director Weller rubbed his temples. This is spiraling. Local PD's under fire, and so are we. Marcus remained still. Then maybe it's time we stop treating accountability like a fire hazard. Weller shot him a sharp look. You don't speak for the Bureau. You're a field operative, not a public figure. I didn't choose publicity, Marcus said. Kroll did. Weller's voice hardened. And now the union's pressuring the Bureau to drop any inquiry. They're calling it entrapment, claiming you staged the stop for exposure. Marcus blinked once, slow. Entrapment? Your background's already under review. They're digging through your undercover cases, your financials, even your Bureau-issued car records. They'll find something to twist. Marcus's tone flattened. Then I'll beat them with evidence. Weller rose. You'll stand down. That's an order. Marcus didn't move. If I do, it means they win. Agent Hale. Marcus turned, walking out mid-sentence. The door closed on Weller's warning voice like a lid on a fire. Across the city, Denny Kroll sat in a union attorney's office. Dark wood, flags on the wall, a smell of power and cologne. The attorney, Calvin Marks, tapped a pen on the desk. You're in deep, Denny. The Bureau's leaking pieces. They're painting you as the face of racial bias. Kroll's hands trembled slightly. They can't. I did procedure by the book. Marks gave a thin smile. The book's written by whoever wins the narrative. Lucky for you, that's my specialty. Kroll frowned. What do you mean? We shift the story. You were threatened by an aggressive suspect claiming false credentials. You followed instinct. It's not racism, it's officer safety. Kroll hesitated. He was FBI, the dispatcher confirmed it. Not your problem, Mark said smoothly. We question the Bureau's verification. Make it look like a political hit job. They'll retreat to protect their image. Kroll stared at the table. What if they don't? Marks leaned in, eyes cold. Then we destroy Hale's credibility before he destroys yours. Kroll's throat tightened. How? Mark smirked. Everyone's got dirt. Find his. That night, Sophia burst into Marcus's office, pale with urgency. They're moving on you. Someone leaked your undercover alias list. Marcus looked up. How bad? Bad enough. Your counter-terror ops, your shell cover names. Some of them are public now. Blogs, conspiracy sites, message boards. They're saying you fabricated your identity. He closed his laptop, jaw locked. So they're using the same playbook every system uses. Discredit the target, not the evidence. Sophia leaned on his desk. This isn't just smear. If your cover identities are out, your contacts could be compromised. People could die. Marcus's silence was heavier than fury. Then it's time I stopped playing defense, she frowned. Meaning? I'm bringing it all out. Kroll's record, the union collusion, the IA cover-ups. Full file. Marcus, you can't leak Bureau documents. I'm not leaking, he said. I'm testifying. Her eyes widened. Weller will bury you. Marcus stood, sliding a flash drive into his pocket. Then he'll have to dig through the truth to do it. Meanwhile, in his apartment, Kroll drank from a half-empty bottle, watching news panels tear him apart. Racist cop this, racist cop that. His phone buzzed. An anonymous number. Stop the kid. Delete the footage. End it before it spreads further. He stared at the message, unease crawling up his spine. The sender's profile was encrypted Bureau style. Someone inside the system wanted silence even more than he did. He typed back, "Who is this?" No reply. Rain lashed against the window again. He turned up the volume. Another broadcast showing Marcus's face, calm and precise, walking into the courthouse for a preliminary review. Kroll hurled the bottle. Glass shattered, whiskey bleeding into the carpet. Next morning, Marcus entered the Bureau hearing room. Cameras lined the back wall. Weller sat stone-faced. Across from him, Kroll, pressed uniform, pale beneath the lights, his attorney whispering poison into his ear. The moderator's voice was formal. Agent Hale, Officer Kroll. Today's session concerns procedural misconduct, unlawful detainment, and professional conduct unbecoming. Marcus spoke evenly. You want my statement? It's simple. The problem isn't one officer. It's a structure that teaches men like him they'll never face consequences. Kroll's attorney jumped in. Objection, this isn't a political forum. Marcus continued. Every form, every file, every erased complaint says the same thing. Protect the badge, not the people. Weller's hand tightened on the table. Agent Hale, that's enough. Marcus faced him. No, sir. It's exactly enough. The room was silent except for the hum of recording devices. Kroll shifted, trying to meet Marcus's eyes but couldn't. For the first time, the divide between them was visible. Not race, not uniform, but the line between conscience and complicity. Marcus leaned forward. You thought this was about me embarrassing you, officer. It's not. It's about every man who didn't survive what I did. No one spoke. Outside, rain began again, tapping the courthouse glass like a clock counting down to collapse. By dawn, Marcus's name had become both weapon and warning. News anchors spoke it with divided tongues, some with reverence, others with venom. Agent Hale under scrutiny. Traffic stop agent accused of bias against police, hero or hypocrite. He sat alone at his kitchen table, the TV sound muted. Coffee went cold untouched. Outside, the city murmured beneath another gray sky. His phone buzzed endlessly. Reporters, activists, bureau contacts. Somewhere among the noise, his integrity was being traded like currency. A knock cut through the silence. Sophia stepped in without waiting. You've been doxxed, she said flatly. He didn't move. How far? They posted your address, your sister's, even your old deployment photo. And, she hesitated, someone spray-painted your driveway last night. Racial slur. You're trending again. Marcus's jaw flexed, no surprise, only fatigue. Figures. When the truth's too heavy, people attack the person holding it. Sophia dropped a file on the table. It's not just civilians. Someone inside leaked your personnel report. You're officially suspended pending review. Marcus looked up. Weller signed it? His name's on the line, but it came from higher. He exhaled. So they'd rather silence a witness than confront a racist cop. Sophia nodded. Classic containment. He stood, sliding the file aside. Fine, let them contain me. I'll still burn through the walls. Across town, Kroll was unraveling. He'd barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw his own face on 1,000 screens, the smirk, the flashlight, the cuffs. The internet had spliced it into montages, protest slogans, parodies. He couldn't walk into a gas station without whispers. In the precinct, his badge sat on the desk like a relic. Sergeant Mills avoided his gaze. Got word from upstairs, Mills said. They're putting you on administrative leave. Kroll's laugh was bitter. So I'm the scapegoat now? Public's howling. The chief's got to throw a bone. Kroll slammed his fist against the locker. I did procedure! Mills lowered his voice. Off the record, you're toxic, Denny. Even the union's pulling back. The words hit harder than any punch. Kroll looked around the locker room. The same walls that once echoed with camaraderie now felt like an empty tomb. Let them try to bury me, he muttered. I'll drag Hale down with me. At the bureau, Sophia cornered Weller in the corridor. You hung him out to dry. Weller didn't flinch. He disobeyed orders, compromised interagency relations, and now the bureau's PR department is in flames. You're protecting your optics, not your people. Weller's gaze sharpened. You think I don't know what Kroll is? But you don't win battles like this by shouting into microphones. You wait, build leverage, and strike clean. Sophia folded her arms. Marcus was leverage. Weller's silence was his admission. That evening, Marcus drove through the city's South District, his old neighborhood. News vans prowled near his street, hungry for sound bites. He parked 2 blocks away and walked, hood up. At his driveway, the graffiti glared back in red spray paint. Traitor. He stood there unmoving. The rain had begun again, thin and cold, washing the paint into streaks that ran like blood down the concrete. A voice came from behind him. They think you betrayed them, but all you did was show the mirror. It was Sophia. She'd followed him. Public needs a villain, Marcus said quietly. They just can't decide which color it wears. She stepped closer. You can still pull back. Drop the files, lay low. This will burn itself out. He shook his head. Not before it burns someone else. Her voice softened for once. Marcus, they're not scared of your truth. They're scared of how many others will start telling theirs. He turned, eyes hollow. Then we make them listen. 2 days later, the leak exploded. Anonymous sources released internal bureau memos confirming years of complaints ignored, officers reassigned instead of reprimanded. Kroll's name appeared in 3 of them. Cable panels erupted. Protests spread outside City Hall. The mayor called for unity. The union called it a witch hunt. And Marcus, suspended, silent, became the symbol neither side could fully control. Reporters camped at his street. Drones hovered. The noise was relentless. Then one night his sister called, voice trembling. They came by the house, Mark, men in plain clothes. Said they were checking on family safety. But it didn't feel like protection. His grip on the phone tightened. Pack a bag. Go stay with Aunt Rosa. Marcus, now. He hung up before she could argue. At the same hour, Kroll sat in a bar at the edge of town, unshaven, staring into his drink. The TV above showed his face next to Marcus's, 2 sides of the same collapse. The bartender turned up the volume. Sources indicate Officer Kroll may face criminal inquiry pending federal testimony. Kroll's hand twitched. He pulled out his phone. A message blinked from an unknown contact. You're being offered protection if you testify against Hale. Say he baited you, doctored files, abused bureau access. You walk free. He stared at the words, pulse hammering. The temptation tasted like oxygen, but beneath it, another voice whispered, he signs your clearance checks. He deleted the message but couldn't delete the echo. At home, Marcus sat in darkness, laptop open, news scrolling endlessly. He closed the lid, finally, letting silence reclaim the room. In that silence, the truth had grown teeth. He had become both the hunted and the headline, proof that exposing corruption meant you bled from both sides. The rain began again, tapping soft on the window. He whispered into the dark, "Let it wash." But even as it fell, he knew. Storms didn't cleanse institutions. They only showed which walls still leaked. The city had turned volatile. Protesters packed the courthouse steps, signs lifted high under a pale sky. Justice for all. Stop the shield. Expose the system. Police formed a wall. Riot gear. Mirrored visors, silent as machinery. Marcus watched from a nearby rooftop. Binoculars trained on the chaos below. From this distance, the crowd was an organism, pulsing, chanting, devouring sound. His phone buzzed again. "Sophia, you're missing it," she said. "They're calling your name." "I'm not their savior," Marcus replied. "I'm their proof." "That's enough." "Proof doesn't stay pure," Sophia countered. "They'll twist it." "They already are." He said nothing. The wind carried sirens up to the roof. Across town, Kroll stood outside the precinct's side entrance, flanked by 2 lawyers. His badge had been surrendered, his locker emptied. The press swarmed the sidewalk. "Officer Kroll, did you racially profile Agent Hale? Do you regret your actions that night? Is it true the FBI's turning on you?" He ignored them, jaw locked. Inside the building, fluorescent light bleached everything colorless. He followed the lawyers through narrow corridors until they reached an internal affairs conference room. 3 agents sat waiting. One of them, a man Kroll didn't recognize, he spoke first. "You're here voluntarily, Mr. Kroll. Off the record. We'd like your perspective on Agent Hale's conduct during the incident." Kroll leaned forward. "You're not after the truth. You're after a scapegoat." The agent's face didn't change. "We're after consistency," Kroll smirked, bitter. "Consistency? You built a system that punishes you for blinking wrong. And you call that order." Marcus drove to the bureau that same afternoon. The lobby was a storm of whispers. Cameras turned as he entered. Weller waited near the elevators, expression carved from restraint. "You shouldn't be here," Weller said quietly. "Neither should Kroll," Marcus replied. Weller sighed. "You think I'm your enemy, but you've turned this into a national firestorm. Politicians are sniffing for blood. The Bureau can't afford you right now." Marcus stepped closer. "Then afford the truth." The elevator doors closed between them before Weller could answer. In the conference room, the questioning had shifted. "Officer Kroll, Agent Hale's file lists a previous internal complaint. Excessive force during a 2019 operation in Detroit. Are you aware of that?" Kroll frowned. He cleared that. "Officially, yes. But the Bureau omitted several details." The agent slid a folder across the table. Kroll's eyes flicked through pages. Redacted lines, timestamps, photos. It was a narrative being built brick by brick. He looked up. "You're pinning this on him." The agent didn't deny it. "We need resolution. The public wants one name. Help us close this cleanly and your record goes quiet." Kroll stared at the folder, at the photo of Marcus's face. For a long moment he said nothing. Then, "You think I'm your weapon?" "Everyone's someone's weapon," the agent replied. That night, Sophia met Marcus in a dim parking garage downtown. Her headlights sliced the dark as he approached. "They're setting you up," she said. "They're feeding Kroll dirt or fabricating it. Either way, you're the fall guy." Marcus folded his arms. "You got proof?" "Not yet. But Weller's been seen meeting with the same internal agents who questioned Kroll. The Bureau's desperate to cauterize the wound. They'll amputate you to stop the bleeding." He looked past her, toward the faint echo of chanting outside. "Then they'd better hurry. That crowd isn't waiting for paperwork." "Marcus," he interrupted, voice low. "They think this ends in a report. It doesn't. It ends when the Mirror stops lying." 2 days later, a leaked transcript hit the web. Internal documents, half redacted, half legible. The headline blared, "FBI agent under investigation for racial manipulation of police incident." Marcus's photo was plastered under it. Comment sections erupted. Traitor, hero, liar, symbol. His phone rang. "Weller." "Who leaked it?" Marcus demanded. "Doesn't matter now," Weller said, voice flat. "You've become the case, not the investigator. You let this happen, I contained it, you buried it, silence." Then Weller's quiet reply, "You wanted exposure. This is what it looks like." At the precinct, Kroll saw the news flash and froze. The anchor read, "New evidence suggests Agent Marcus Hale may have instigated the traffic stop for personal gain." He muttered, "Personal gain? That's a joke, the other officer watching beside him snorted. Guess he's not so untouchable after all. Kroll's mind spun. The folder, the meeting, the offer, it was all aligning. They were framing Hale to save the institution. For the first time, Kroll understood what it felt like to be disposable. Night fell again. Marcus sat in his car overlooking the courthouse. The protest had grown, candles flickering, voices raw. He could hear them chanting his name, but it no longer sounded like praise. It sounded like a verdict. Sophia's voice came through the phone. "You can't fight every enemy at once." "I'm not fighting," he said. "I'm surviving." "Then let me help," he hesitated. "There's a thumb drive in my desk. The files from Detroit. Take them to the press." "Marcus, if you release that," he cut her off. "It ends this way or it never ends." The call disconnected. Morning light bled through the city like an afterthought. Smoke still rising from the courthouse square, ash mixing with mist. The protests had dissolved into a tense quiet, the kind that feels like the pause before a verdict. Marcus hadn't slept. He sat in his apartment, shirt half-buttoned, eyes fixed on the television. Every channel ran the same footage. Flames, riot shields, broken signs. His own name threaded through the captions. FBI agent under fire. Justice gone rogue. The phone rang again. Unknown number. He let it ring twice before answering. "Agent Hale," the voice said, mailed official tone, bureau cadence. "You're to report to headquarters immediately for an emergency inquiry." Marcus stared at the window, at his own faint reflection. "Inquiry or execution?" The line went dead. At bureau headquarters, the air was sterile, recycled, scentless, oppressive. Agents avoided his eyes as he walked through the corridors. The walls seemed to hum with quiet betrayal. In the conference room, Weller sat across from him. Sophia stood against the wall, arms folded. Defiant even now, on the table, a single printed photo, a freeze frame of Marcus during the traffic stop, his face illuminated by the officer's flashlight. Weller began, voice measured. "Agent Hale, you are being placed under formal review for misconduct, unauthorized dissemination of classified data, and incitement of public disorder." Marcus's lips tightened. "You mean for doing your job?" "This isn't a debate," Weller said. "Your actions have compromised bureau integrity," Sophia cut in. "Integrity died the moment you buried the reports on Kroll's record." "Agent Rivera," Weller said sharply, "you're already on thin ice. Don't test it." Marcus leaned forward. "Tell me one thing, Weller. When you look at that photo, what do you see?" Weller hesitated. "I see chaos." "Wrong," Marcus said. "You see reflection. You see what you trained us to ignore. The system looking back." At that same hour, Kroll stood on the courthouse steps, summoned by his lawyer for a hearing that never started. Cameras lined the sidewalk. The reporters didn't shout questions this time. They just watched, waiting for him to break. A woman in the crowd yelled, "Say his name!" Another followed. Soon the chant returned, but now it was different, fractured, conflicted. Kroll's jaw clenched. He saw his own face on one of the signs and the word "guilty" scrawled beneath. He whispered to himself, "They made me, then fed me to the crowd." His lawyer touched his shoulder. "We can still cut a deal. Testify against the Bureau's handling. Distance yourself." Kroll didn't respond. His eyes had drifted to the courthouse doors. Something in him, pride, rage, confusion, had curdled into resolve. Inside the Bureau, the inquiry escalated. "Agent Hale," one panelist asked, "did you release classified case data to the press?" Marcus replied calmly, "No, but I stopped hiding it." "Did you engage in conduct unbecoming of a federal agent?" "If the Bureau's definition of becoming means obedient silence, then yes." Weller's hand tightened on his pen. "That's enough." Marcus looked around the room. "You're not investigating me. You're negotiating with your conscience." Sophia stepped forward, sliding a small drive onto the table. "He's not lying. Here's the metadata. Timestamps from the original files. The leaks didn't come from him." The panelists froze. Weller's face drained of color. Marcus turned slowly. "You knew, didn't you?" Weller's silence was the only confession needed. Across town, Kroll entered the city newsroom uninvited. His clothes were wrinkled, eyes bloodshot, but his voice was steady. "I've got something to say," he told the startled receptionist. "On record." Minutes later, cameras rolled. He began quietly, almost hollow. "They told me to keep my head down, follow protocol, and when the storm hit, they threw me under the bus. But the truth is, I wasn't a good man. I was trained not to see people like Hale as human. I wore that training like armor." The reporter asked, "Why speak now?" Kroll swallowed hard. "Because the system that made me is the same one that broke him." The room fell silent. Within an hour, the clip hit every feed. At Bureau headquarters, chaos followed. Phones rang non-stop. The inquiry halted mid-sentence as an aide burst into the room. "Sir, you need to see this." She turned the screen toward Weller. Kroll's confession played on live television. Marcus didn't move. He just watched Weller's composure crack inch by inch. One panelist whispered, "Damage control's impossible now." Weller's voice was low. "Get him out of here." Marcus stood, straightened his jacket. "No, you'll want me in the next frame. I'm the only one who doesn't need to lie." Outside, rain began again. Thin, cold, unending. Marcus walked through the crowd forming around the bureau entrance. Some shouted his name in praise, others in accusation. Cameras flashed, Sophia caught up, umbrella forgotten, hair soaked. "You're trending worldwide. They're calling it the reckoning." He gave a small, exhausted smile. "They love naming the mess. Makes it feel manageable." "What now?" she asked. He looked out over the crowd. "Now they see it all, no edits. No filters." She touched his arm. "And you?" "I was never built for applause." Hours later, Weller resigned under pressure. Federal oversight committees announced full reviews. Protests turned into vigils. The footage replayed in endless loops. Kroll's confession, Marcus's silence, the Bureau's fall. In the noise, both men disappeared. Weeks later, a journalist tracked Marcus to a coastal town. He worked there quietly, fixing boats, wearing no badge. When asked why he left, he said only, "Because truth doesn't need a uniform," the reporter pressed. "Do you forgive Kroll?" Marcus paused, looking out at the horizon. He saw the system for what it was. "That's more than most." The journalist asked the final question, "Would you do it again?" Marcus turned, eyes calm, voice steady. "Every time." The sea wind swallowed the words. Across the river, Kroll sat alone in his car, watching the same crowd. The noise carried across the water, a single word repeated until it became meaningless. He whispered to no one, "They'll eat you alive, Hale. Then they'll eat me." He reached for his phone again, opened a blank message typed, "We both know the system's rigged. Let's end it on our own terms." He never sent it. In the courthouse square, a fire started, small, unplanned. The chant broke, replaced by chaos. Sirens screamed. The line between order and outrage dissolved. Marcus stepped out of the car and into the rain of sparks. Somewhere in the distance, Kroll watched the same glow rise into the sky. Both men, on opposite sides of the same war, realizing too late, the fire was never about them. 3 months later, the Bureau building stood half empty. Reporters had moved on to new scandals, new names, new fires. But the echo of that night, the confession, the collapse, still haunted the hallways like static. Marcus watched it all from a distance. The ocean had become his clock, waves counting down the space between past and peace. Each morning he fixed the same weathered boat, hands roughened, shoulders looser. Silence was the only language left that didn't lie. He hadn't spoken to Sophia since the hearings. He hadn't read another headline. But every now and then someone mailed him a newspaper clipping, folded, anonymous, about another city, another name, another man who didn't survive a stop. He'd stack them in a drawer, unread but not unseen. In a small cafe 2 towns over, Sophia waited in a corner booth. When Marcus walked in, her expression softened. "You look—" She paused, searching for a word. Unburdened, he smiled faintly. "I look unemployed." They sat in silence until she slid a folder across the table. Congressional Review Report. They found 34 cases connected to Kroll's precinct. Suppressed complaints, falsified reports, missing footage. Weller's testimony cracked the rest open. Marcus nodded. "So the Bureau finally cleans house." "Not clean," Sophia said. "Just quieter." He looked out the window. "Quieter's what they always aim for. Noise scares them. Noise wakes people up," she countered. He took a sip of coffee. "People don't wake up. They roll over, hit snooze, and wait for someone else to scream next. Her eyes sharpened. You really think none of this mattered? It mattered, he said quietly. Just not enough. Across the city, Kroll sat in a halfway house room. Plain walls, folding bed, a metal window frame that didn't open. He was out on conditional release, stripped of badge, pension, and anonymity. The TV played softly, a news segment. Marking the 3-month anniversary of the reckoning, his own face flashed for a second before cutting to footage of protests. He turned it off. He'd become a warning label now, a symbol for every department that needed a scapegoat. But what gnawed at him wasn't guilt, it was recognition. He'd seen the machine from both sides now, and it didn't care who it ground down. A knock at the door broke his thoughts. A volunteer stepped in, a young black woman in a denim jacket, clipboard in hand. We're doing outreach for former law enforcement, trying to help with reintegration. Kroll hesitated, then nodded toward the chair. You sure you want to help someone like me? Her gaze was steady. You said something the night of the hearings, that you were trained not to see people like you see yourself. That line's been playing in classrooms, forums, everywhere. Maybe that's helping more than you think. He looked away. Words don't change systems. Maybe not, she said. But they start the cracks. When she left, he sat in silence for a long time, staring at the door she'd closed behind her, as if the air itself had shifted. Sophia and Marcus walked along the pier later that evening. The wind carried the salt smell and the far-off hum of the city, trying to forget. You could come back, she said. The Bureau's changing. Public oversight, transparency boards. They might even offer reinstatement. He shook his head. They don't want me back. They want my silence packaged as closure. She sighed. You don't have to carry all of it. Marcus looked at her. Then who does? The waves broke hard against the rocks, echoing like applause for no one. Sophia said softly, You were right about one thing. Truth doesn't wear a uniform, but it still needs a voice. He smiled faintly. Then use yours. Later that night, Sophia went live on a public forum, her first time speaking since the inquiry. Thousands watched as she read from the report, connecting the dots that others still tried to blur. She ended with a single sentence. Justice is not what we say when the cameras are on. It's what we do when the silence returns. The feed flooded with messages. Among them, one anonymous comment stood out. He's proud of you, no name, no origin, just that. She didn't need to ask who. Weeks turned into months. Kroll found part-time work with a community rehabilitation program, small, quiet, invisible to most. He didn't speak much. He listened. He learned how to shut up without shutting down. One afternoon, a group of kids asked who he used to be. He hesitated, then said, Someone who thought he understood power. Turns out I only understood fear. They didn't know what to say, but they listened. And that was enough. Back by the sea, Marcus stood at the pier at sunset, the horizon carved in gold and smoke. The last of the boats drifted in. He pulled a crumpled clipping from his pocket. Kroll speaks to youth group on reform. A small photo. No headlines. No outrage. Just a caption. Former officer advocates change. Marcus folded it carefully, slid it into his coat. The world hadn't changed overnight. The system hadn't fallen, but cracks had spread, quiet and deep. He watched the water darken. Slow work, he murmured. But real. The tide pulled back, whispering against the pilings. Somewhere beyond the waves, sirens rose and faded again, the sound of a city still learning how to listen. He turned away from the water, toward the long road back inland. He didn't look back. Winter returned to the city like an old bruise, faintly visible, tender to the touch. The courthouse plaza, once a battlefield of chants and shields, was now a monument to cleanup crews and pigeons. The headlines had moved on. News scandals filled the airwaves. But beneath the polished silence, something had shifted. Marcus Hale was no longer a name for outrage. He was a ghost story told in federal halls, the agent who tore the curtain and survived the noise that followed. He lived quietly now, teaching. Self-defense at a community center on the edge of town. No badge, no gun. Just a circle of mats, sweat, and kids who still believed the world could be fair if they hit back hard enough. When the day ended, he cleaned the mats alone. the hum of the old ceiling fan filling the empty space. The rhythm of it reminded him of the bureau, the whir of machines pretending to breathe. Sophia visited sometimes, always unannounced. She'd stayed in the city, turned her testimony into advocacy. She'd written essays, spoken at panels, earned threats and applause in equal measure. One evening, she found Marcus locking up. "They're reopening the Kroll cases," she said. "Federal review this time, outside oversight." Marcus didn't look surprised. "Too late for the people already buried by the old ones." "Maybe," she said, "but not for the ones still breathing." He studied her. "You still think the system can reform itself?" "I think people can," she answered. "And people built the system." He handed her the keys. "Then teach them faster." Kroll hadn't left the halfway house. The world beyond it had stopped making sense, too loud, too eager to define him. Inside he had structure, chores, counseling, a clock that told him when to speak and when to stop. One afternoon a letter arrived, no return address. Just his name written in tight, deliberate strokes. He opened it. "You were never the enemy. You were proof." M.H. He stared at the initials until the ink blurred. For the first time in months he felt something break that wasn't bone or pride. It was the small, unbearable thing called relief. He folded the letter and slid it into his Bible, between two blank pages. At a downtown conference, Weller faced a committee under oath. His resignation hadn't saved him. The paper trail had caught up. He sat under fluorescent light again, the same room where Marcus once sat, roles reversed. A senator asked, "Do you acknowledge that systemic bias influenced federal operations under your command?" Weller hesitated. "I acknowledge that bias exists everywhere, including here." "And did you suppress investigations related to those biases?" He looked down. "Yes." The room was silent. Cameras clicked. A single truth spoken too late still echoed. Outside, Sophia waited on the courthouse steps. When the hearing ended, she walked through the crowd of journalists. A few recognized her. One shouted, "Do you feel vindicated?" She paused, rain spotting her coat. "Vindication is just victory for the ego. What I feel is unfinished." She left before they could twist it into a soundbite. Night settled heavy over the pier where Marcus lived. The water was dark glass. He sat with a small transistor radio, tuning through static until a voice emerged, Sophia, on a live segment. "And what we've learned isn't new," she said. "It's just louder now. Justice doesn't arrive like lightning. It grinds forward like earth moving." Marcus leaned back, listening. The radio crackled, faded, then returned. Her voice carried through the hum of waves. He smiled faintly. "You learned fast." In the halfway house, Kroll watched the same broadcast on an old TV. He turned the volume down, muttering, "Guess we're all still digging." Then he stood, grabbed his coat, and walked out into the cold night. The guard at the desk didn't stop him. His release papers had come through that morning. He didn't go far. Just down the block, where a mural covered the side of a warehouse, faces of victims, painted in bright color against gray brick. At the corner of the mural, smaller, almost hidden, was a phrase, "Truth doesn't fade. It waits." He stood there until dawn, watching the paint glisten in the streetlights, his breath clouding the air. Spring crept in. Sophia's advocacy work expanded. Kroll started mentoring cadets, unannounced, uncredited. Marcus still fixed boats and taught kids how to stay upright when the world hit first. None of them spoke again, not directly. But their echoes intertwined. Courtrooms, classrooms, city halls, the residue of one night when the system flinched and couldn't fully recover. One evening, a student at Marcus's center asked, "Sensei, were you ever scared?" He paused mid-step, looking at the boy's open, unarmored face. "Every day," he said. "Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's refusing to let fear write the last line." The boy nodded, repeating it quietly like a mantra. Marcus turned off the lights, locked the door, and stepped outside. The wind carried city sounds, sirens, laughter, engines, a symphony of what was broken and still trying to heal. He didn't look back at the building, he didn't need to. The truth had already learned how to walk without him.